Let's do a little video on how to keep your garden watered in a serious heat wave. My watering can. I've got one water butt there, one there, one there, one there, and my pond. That's the last resort when the rainwater butts are done. The tap water goes through a 3-stage filter in the filter room and puts the tap water, clean tap water, into the pond. And the fish poo in it, the bacteria turn the ammonia into nitrogen, which is plant food, the nitrates. So then the water from the pond is actually feeding the plants at the same time as watering them. I've got my plants that are planted in the floor, haven't had to water these. I've got potatoes, tomatoes, and corn, kale, cabbage, chard, beetroot, carrots. That bed's 1.5 feet deep, so right down the bottom of there it will still be damp. The roots will be tucked into some water. And my fruit trees, I've got about nearly 15 fruit trees. There's 4 here that are buried in big pots. So again, they don't take a lot of water because the pots are in the ground. It'll have some roots buried down deep out the bottom of the pots, I imagine. I lift them up every 3 months just to make sure there's no tap roots burying into the ground. Here's one that's just a bit more visible. That's not really got any protection. This one dries out rapidly, so I'm having to keep watering that a lot. And the weeds help massively. Natural mulch, natural shade. This little bonsai thing has got no pot on it whatsoever. You can't even see it. Tiny. That keeps dry because weeds keep the sun off it. And the whole of my greenhouse collects rainwater into that butt, which is obviously the first one to get depleted. And this is where it's been taking the serious amounts of water, 2-3 times a day. It's too hot to be in here, so I'll only be here for a minute. It must be 35 degrees in here right now. It's probably nearly 30 outside. Another thing you can do is wet the floor. The water evaporating, cool the place down, cool the air down. Tomatoes need the water, they need to be kept damp. But that's the first time I've watered my red potatoes in a while. They seem fine, still looking green. Tomatoes, as I said, love the water, they can't get dry, otherwise they look like that. My herbs are all going to flower, should have had them out in the garden. Got them planted up. My banana, look at this one. It's been that dry and hot, I think my banana's dead. It was just about to chuck out the next leaf. It's not looking very happy. I think that's because the air is just so dry. I've got nowhere I can put it really. Right, I might move it and put it in the shade. See if it'll come back to life. You don't want to use tap water if you don't have to. It's a last resort for me to save my trees. Tap water's got all sorts of crap in it, but predominantly chlorine, which kills bacteria. And it's bacteria that feeds your plants. So you want rainwater, pond water, river water, cleanest you can get. I've started a grow bed here, but my compost ain't ready yet, so I've just covered it over with some plants that I'm letting go to seed. This is my fertiliser corner, all my comfrey plants, my worm bins, my 2 compost bins. My old fish tank's just there that I let fill up with water as well. That's drained right down to nothing. Keeping the trays in pots as well, pots in trays should I say. It's going to help save the amount of water that you use. Instead of the water just running out the bottom, it'll sit down there, it'll send out some feeler roots, pick up the water, let everything go to seed. Look, I think that's a kale plant from last year. And it'll reseed. Not planted any tomatoes or carrots this year, and they're coming up everywhere. Yeah, this must be the 10th day in a row of 20 plus degrees. Everything's crispy. Even the ground's cracking up, look. So I went away for a week. My dad didn't water my garden. It was like 10 days ago. When I came back, half of the stuff dead. All of my fruit trees had fruit on. This was a apple tree, no apples. This is a pear, no pears. They were full of pears and apples. This was full of cherries. There's only a couple. That's lost all its pears. My fig tree had more figs than I've ever seen on it. Well, it's only 2 years old. That was absolutely covered in figs. Dropped them all, sucked all the moisture back out the fruits to save its life, and dropped all the fruits. Same with my plum tree. Look at all these. These are the nicest plums I've ever had, and they're just shrivelling up and dying. A bit of a recap. It's been a serious heat wave. You need some good roots going in the ground to shade the roots. Don't let the ground dry out. Water twice a day. Make sure there's lots of organic matter in your compost. That'll help hold the moisture. Retains it a lot better than clays and sands and stuff. Trays, keep everything on trays. You can wet the floor of your greenhouse. The evaporating moisture will cool the air. And shade cloth, if you can string up a bit of shade cloth anywhere, that's going to help you massively. When I was growing in Costa Rica, everything had to be grown under shade cloths, watered morning and night. England's serious heat wave. My fish, loving it, getting fat. Also, if you've got any bare patches of soil, keep them covered. I've just chucked a plant pot, well, a couple of little ones, big one, tray, banana leaf, weeds that you pull up, show the roots to the sun, bit of mulch. You don't want it to re-root or seed. So 15 minutes in this heat, in the sun, them roots are dead. Some free mulch. That's the other thing from the garden as well, just letting it all grow naturally, all the grasses and the weeds. I just compost everything, and now 4 years of making my own compost and letting plants go to seed, and it's all self-seeding food and not weeds. Obviously you pull out the odd weed all the time, you're never going to avoid that until it's a mini backyard jungle. Yeah, this heat wave's happening all over Europe. A lot of our food that we eat in this country doesn't get grown here. Half of the farmers are struggling, the barley crops are dead. Beer's going to be expensive next year. There's no CO2 to put in it either at the minute. So if this carries on, we're going to be food shortages. Everybody's having more and more babies, more and more people on the planet. This is what you need to start doing, and growing it yourself. A lot more nutrients in some backyard organic homegrown food. Last year or the year before it was lettuce, courgette shortage. So I wonder what we're going to get this year. And grow it yourself, look after yourself. He's looking a little less shriveled, a bit more colour than yesterday. The tip is watering early in the morning, and the slugs go and hide for the day. If you water in the evening, it makes it easier for the slugs to get about and steal your food. There's one of my only fruit trees that did save its some fruit, and because it's buried by weeds and in a white coloured pot, so its roots didn't get cooked. This one, even though it's shaded in another pot, still 3 apples on it. Also, water the roots, don't water the plants. Roots are for drinking, leaves are for breathing. And just keep that soil moist.